Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to our Women Together Connect. It's Tuesday at noon Eastern, which is when we always meet, and it's a joy to be together. My name is Antoinette, and I am the host of our Women Together Connect, and I have a wonderful team that are just behind the scenes, sometimes more front and center as well, but just always a gratitude to our team who holds us all together. And a warm welcome to all of you who have been joining, many of you week after week, some of you maybe for the first time. A warm welcome to all who are attending today on Zoom and in YouTube. It's great to have us all coming together. And if you'd like, you can start to put in the chat a little bit of where you're coming from today. It's always great to see the different places that we're representing. Sometimes we're a more United States group, and sometimes we're more concentrated in different areas. Sometimes we're more global, but it's always a joy to know that each of us are holding a different little piece, little pocket of planet Earth. And we're here coming into this Zoom room circle together. So feel free to just type in the chat a little hello and where you're coming from. I see we've got Arlington, Massachusetts, rainy Bloomfield, Connecticut. Sometimes we share a bit about the weather, just a reminder that I'm here in New York today, and as the clouds have passed, the sun is just coming out, and I know that we sent the rain up to Bloomfield, Connecticut today. So it's a joy to just know that we have those little connections. New York City, hot. West Palm Beach, Florida, Westchester County, Chandler, Arizona, Miami, Florida, Columbus, Ohio, where connection is tenuous. We hope you can hold on. Ramlosa, Sweden, Rhode Island, Berkeley, California, Yardley, Pennsylvania. Wonderful. So we are coming in from all over today. We've got Sarasota, Florida, Southern California. Autumn is on her way. Ossining, New York, West Vancouver, BC. Yes, so some of us are feeling the ends of summer, the little wisps of summer not wanting to let go with high temperatures, and some of us are really still in it. I think Southern California, you must still have some lovely weather, so enjoy it. And we've got a visitor from Virginia with her puppy. Lovely. Rainy Toronto, Merced, California. Wonderful. So we've been coming together week after week. Oh, I see Louisville, Kentucky in the chat as well. Wonderful. So I see that we are, many of us are familiar. It's good to be back in connection. And for those of you who may not have been here before, really what we're doing is coming together week after week and really just sharing with each other. I find that there's so much wisdom in these circles of women. There's so much wisdom that comes up in our group here. And there's so much wisdom in our little connection. So when we have these breakouts in Zoom and we can turn and talk to each other, there's just so much that we can share with each other, especially when we go past the sort of almost layers of identity, the kind of, what do you do? Where are you from? Who, blah, 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 all of these little stories. When we get to the core, the essence of who we are, we have really so much to connect around, and, much more in common than we realize, or we may realize sometimes. So it's wonderful, and also to celebrate our differences, to really connect around what may our differing beliefs, our differing views, and really to learn from each other and treat those as all of that as learning opportunities, and places where we can grow no matter the stage in our lives. And often we're cultivating resilience in this group. We know that the world is facing chaos and disruption at every turn, and how do we show up with resilience? So I'm very excited for today's speaker. I'll invite us into just a little practice, little moment of stillness, but I'm very excited for today's speaker and today's topic, because really as we enter these times, it's more and more important to really be able to access our voice, the power of our voice as women. And I noticed that even when I feel I've done this work, I know how to do this, I get it, I still, and I will probably always in my life, have these moments where I freeze, or I shut down, or I don't say exactly what's really on my mind or what's on my heart, and I kind of question myself. And so really to look a bit more into that and deepen our own sense of kind of practice, really being able to practice having our voice and really stepping into that. So I'll share a little bit more about Judith in just a moment, but I'd like to invite us to just settle here today. Take a breath, relax. You can put your feet flat on the ground if that's available to you, and just connect into your own body. Often we walk around and we're in our heads, and especially coming into this kind of Zoom experience, you have an idea of why we're here or an idea of what wants to be shared. And I'd like to just invite us to take a deep breath and relax. Maybe close your eyes or lower your gaze. Just feel a sense of connection. Perhaps it's just the feet in the shoe or in the sock, on the floor. Just feeling a sense of connection, perhaps the body on the seat. Feeling into the small of the back. Just feeling into where there may be tension or lightness. And letting the breath really just move into that place. For a moment, just tuning into what brought me here today. What what brought me to opening my Zoom, connecting with these women, connecting with this topic. And just feel that little seed of intention and see if it has a word or phrase. And then you can reconnect with the screen and type it in the chat or the comment section, and I'll read a few out. An inner longing, still curious, connection, need focus, calming, longing, community, voice by choice. We've got a lot of curiosity in the room today. The size of this group, feeling connected, serenity, curious and connection, all about empowering women. Beautiful. Well, we have a wonderful speaker, and I'll share it with you today. So Judith she has a company called Accent on Speech, and she helps people really become more effective and better communicators. She started working in New York City as a speech language pathologist in 1993, where she worked extensively with diverse populations and communication issues, including things like accent, voice, stuttering. And over the last 20 years, she's been improving communication skills for professionals and people, in both their business and personal lives. She works with all types of individuals and groups looking to expand their vocal range. And she uses the voice as a tool to really teach and facilitate the connection between the mind, body, voice, breath framework that she uses with many of her clients. She's also a singer and certified singing teacher and accent dialect coach for actors. She's got an incredible background, and I'm happy to share more, but we're really happy to have you with us, Judith, today, and sharing a bit about some of the issues that you see coming up both with your female clients and inviting us into a practice together here that we can dive into accessing our own voice. And I know, how important this is for myself and for Eileen and for our community. So I'm so grateful for you, to the work that you've been doing that you've been dedicating your life to, and that you came to share it here with us today. So thank you, Judith. Over to you.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Antoinette. First of all, I love this organization and what it does. So it really is an honor and a pleasure to be here. And Antoinette's meditation was the perfect preface for what I'm going to be talking about, what we're going to be talking about, because our voices are housed within our bodies, which need to be grounded and relaxed in order for optimum voice and great sounds to emerge. And breath is the power for our voice. We need to be breathing. So if we're not connected to it or not breathing adequately for speech, our voice and in turn our impact will be diminished. So honestly, I've done 2-day workshops, 1 hour, 2-hour presentations. So today I have a short amount of time, so I'm gonna cut to the chase. And I'm gonna share with you, as Antoinette said, a few of the issues my female clients come to me with, and which I believe many women struggle with. We'll touch upon the various factors that come into play in shaping a voice, which will allow you the opportunity to reflect on your own voice and how it has been shaped. And you can also reflect on the overall role that your voice has played and plays in your life. And finally, we'll talk a bit about how voice is created and ways to make your voice feel and sound stronger and more resonant. And we'll do some exercises along the way that will help illustrate the concepts we're talking about. Okay, so our voices are constantly changing because we are constantly changing. Our roles change and society changes. So our relationship to our voice can be complex. I'd say the most of the major issues related to voice have to do with one of the following. One, old stories we tell ourselves about who we are or who we think we are. And these may have been formed or shaped by society, our cultural background, or personal experiences. And somewhat related to that is mindset issues and repeated thought patterns. Improper breathing technique or poor connection to breath, which usually has to do with either breath holding or shallow breathing. The fourth one is habitual patterns of tension, which often operate under our radar and can distort our voices and our communication, and become aware of them. Not taking up the spaces within our bodies in order for sound to resonate fully and powerfully, and to sound strong and to make the impact we desire on our listeners. And finally, unconscious speaking habits, or even ones we're conscious of that we've picked up along the way that can undermine our communication. A study came out a few years ago, and you might have seen it, that said that men have a natural or learned inclination toward feeling a sense of entitlement, while women have the opposite. They feel a lack of entitlement. And when I read that, I recognized immediately how that is reflected in our voices and in the voices of many of the women I work with. I hear frequently about meetings, the context of meetings, and the challenges women encounter in them, since most of my clients are business professionals. And a common complaint is something to the effect, my input and ideas are not heard, acknowledged, and taken seriously or considered. When that is the case, we investigate through discussion, oftentimes through a bit of role play, to try to get to the bottom of what is happening and why that response is being elicited. What I often end up hearing and discovering is one of the following scenarios. You've been sitting at the meeting and waiting for your turn to speak with some level of nervousness or anxiety. And unconsciously, you've been holding your breath. Or you've been using shallow breathing. So that when you go to speak up, all of your words come rushing out in a flurry of words. And the response to your input, less than optimal. You sound breathless, and it sends the impression that you're not in control. Your sound shouts, I know you might not listen to me, but hey, I've got something to say. Or if I don't get my part out fast, I'm going to lose my turn to speak, my opportunity. So, or what else can happen is this. Since you lack proper breath support, there's not enough breath in the tank, so that when you go to speak up, you end up squeezing sound from your throat, creating a kind of strange sound. It almost sounds like you're battling yourself to get your sound out, your voice out. And it's a sound of disempowerment. It's a voice that sends a message of perhaps a lack of confidence, a lack of self-belief, and perhaps even stability, right? Or you could also end up kind of pushing your voice, and it might make you sound pushy. And the description that is thrown, I know, to many women who, which is horrible, is that they're shrill. Because they're pushing their voice. They just are using their voices not optimally. So, and listen, the unfair truth is that women are still judged more harshly, not only by the way we look, but by the way we sound. So here's my advice. Make sure you are breathing during the meeting. Focus on your breathing throughout the meeting. Even prepare ahead of time by taking a few minutes to breathe, taking in full inhalations, allowing the breath to drop deep inside your body. Breathe calmly and evenly. Visualize the meeting. Speak a few lines. And when you're focusing on your breathing, it distracts you from the chaos in your mind and the tension in your body, because we can only focus on so much at a time. It will actually help you stay present more easily. So now, in your meeting, when you go to speak up, channel that state you were just in. It's familiar. And you'll sound grounded, in control, strong, and credible. And this is how you start to set a new precedent for yourself, right? By consciously changing it, doing it differently. Right? So your speech will be deliberate and calm. You're allowing yourself to breathe, and you will think and speak more clearly. You're less apt to freeze because more oxygen is getting to your brain. You're allowing yourself breathing. So, and these long exhalations, as you probably know, stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. So as you place your voice over these long exhalations, you're actually calming yourself as you speak. Win-win. The sound created sends the message that you expect to be listened to and your input considered. And your presence will be felt in a completely different way. Your breath gives you away. Be ever mindful of your breath and don't let it end up taking a back seat to your words. Think of breath as your wisest, truest self, is sometimes how I think of it. Never hold it, never race it, because when you do, bad things happen. You gotta trust your breath. And if you think about the words, maybe you have already, inspiration, expiration, spirit, and in Hebrew, it's the same word for breath and spirit, ruach, our spirit, our breath. When you ignore your breath, you're denying people your spirit. They're not feeling and hearing your full self, and you're not getting to experience your true self, right? So connect with your breath. It's something we hear so often, the breath, connect to your breath, connect to the breath, but it's said so often because it's so true. Here's another suggestion. Pay attention to your breath during the day and notice if you find yourself ever holding it, how often and when, and see how it impacts your speech or communication. Try to have that awareness. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to talk about deeper voices, deep voices, because a lot of women come to me saying they want a deeper voice, a more authoritative voice, a more credible voice. Like I said, most of my clients are professionals. But by the way, a lot of men are seeking this too, a deeper voice, stronger, more resonant voice. And there's might be some good sense to this because studies show that deeper voices in both men and women create a stronger sense of credibility and instill more trust. Politicians with deeper voices statistically do better in both men and women. Culture and society and our own personal experiences and the media all influence the ways that we speak and sound. And vocal trends come and go. And I think the following statistics will help illustrate that. Over the past 60 years, American women's voices have deepened. By the way, during this same period, men's voices have changed too. Men speak with a wider range of intonation than they used to. As jobs became less about brawn and more service related and entailed, stronger soft skills and communication. So we're kind of becoming more in the center, both of us. But there's a lot of role, and also men are more allowed to show emotion more, so they can reveal it in their voice more, right? Ups and downs. So, and there's a lot of role play when it comes to voice, how we use our voice. And the ideas of how a woman should sound have changed over time. I'm still somewhat flabbergasted when I hear a recording, I don't know if you probably have, of Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis from the 1950s. To me, her voice sounds like an odd combination of the transatlantic accent, all from here to forever, and a bit of Marilyn Monroe. It's a wonderful opportunity to show the American people the White House. Okay, this is how she spoke. And women, we look up to our leaders, and it's just fascinating. The ideals of how men and women should sound vary from culture to culture. For example, Japanese women have the highest voices of women anywhere in the world, while Japanese men tend to speak in the lowest, or one of the lowest voices of all men. So obviously, this isn't due to anatomy. It's most likely a reflection of the historically quite delineated roles that men and women are expected to play in society. Like Swedish women speak in deeper voices than American women, and Dutch women speak in the deepest voices of all. It's interesting. So this idea of a deeper voice, what exactly is happening when we speak in a deeper voice? A really important distinction to make is that pitch is different from depth. Women will always have a higher pitched voice than men due to our physiology. The vocal folds are smaller, and the spaces surrounding them, our larynxes and our bodies, are smaller, right? Opera singers sing high pitches with lots of depth and resonance, right? So they're two very different concepts. Sometimes I'll encounter people who are pushing their voices down to the bottom of their range, even going into glottal fry. And really, all that does is rob them of their expressiveness and tire their voice out more easily. So every woman has the ability to create a stronger, more resonant voice, because resonance is created within the spaces of the body where sound reverberates. Larger spaces that are not tense or contracted create deeper sounds. with lower undertones. Oh, a small sound, a smaller mouth, a smaller space, and a bigger spaces with my body. It's not just about taking up our space at the table. It's also about taking up the spaces within our bodies. It starts with our bodies. Because what I find with a lot of women is that they tend to make the spaces within their bodies smaller, which in turn makes their voices smaller. And there might be different reasons for this. You know, again, it might be influenced by society's idea or their idea of what society thinks that females should sound like. Or maybe it's due to maybe poor self-esteem. We make ourselves smaller. Or self-protection. Like, I'm young, I'm a child, you be gentle with me. Or it might just be due to habit, you know? So there are three main resonance chambers for sound waves to reverberate within the body, right? So sound is created, vocal folds vibrate, and then with all these spaces, they reverberate. Oh, okay, resonance is created. Okay, the three chambers, the oral cavity, the mouth and throat, oh, the nose and nasopharynx, nasal sounds. And the largest space, obviously, is the chest. Men tend to focus most of their vocal energy from their chests. They speak from their chests. More their whole bodies are in it. Whereas a lot of women tend to focus their vocal energy from their throat, their mouth, or their face. And even when they speak from their throats and mouths, they tend to make those spaces smaller. So here's something we can do together. And this has to do with opening up the chest, the largest resonance chamber, and taking up our space and allowing ourselves to vibrate more fully. So you're going to, let me move my water so I don't knock it down. We're going to open up our arms, and as you do, you're going to open up your chest like big double wide open doors. Inhale. And then on the exhale, you're going to close your arms, but you're going to visualize yourself staying large. So, and you're going to play sound over that exhalation. So like this. And you're going to pay attention to the feeling of your whole body vibrating, that sense of openness and full vibration, space, taking up your space, right? So it's even more powerful than power poses because you're feeling it. You're feeling the vibration and you're connecting it to your voice, which is your essence, your spirit, right, yourself. So, or if you want, you can just keep your arms open when you exhale. I close them because our bodies are actually getting smaller when we exhale, but I want you to think of staying large. And don't peter out. Stay strong throughout your utterance, right? Don't peter or pull back. Right? Okay, so that's a good exercise. And then continue speaking, say something, and pay attention to how you feel and how you sound after that little exercise. Right? Okay. So if you think of sound as just pouring out of this hole in your head, your voice is going to be pretty small or strained if you push it from your throat. So again, you want to think of voice and sound as emanating from your whole body and being. Right? So, or you can think of speech also when you're breathing in, you drop breath down into your gut, right? So if you imagine your sound coming from your gut, hello, as opposed to here, your sound will be fuller and richer and deeper, and you'll probably sound more connected to your message, to your gut message, and more fully invested and in the game. You're not just telling the words with your mouth, you're feeling it, you're connected to it with your breath, your body. You're present. So we're not always conscious of what we're hearing in a voice that attracts us or repels us, or why it instills a sense of trust or makes us feel more comfortable and draws us in, right? But the vibrations, the vibes you give off are what people feel and take away. So if you're holding back, or if you're making yourself smaller, people pick up on those cues. They're not aware of it, but they pick up on those vibes. Studies show that the sound of your voice can be twice as influential as the actual words you say. So considering all the stock people put in their words, like for a speech, it seems we should be putting as much energy and time into how we sound, right? Because again, it's people might not remember what you say, but they often remember how you made them feel. So chest resonance, then we're going to talk about throat and mouth level. So like I said, a lot of women end up making these spaces smaller as well, which can make you sound young or weakened or small. So we're going to open up this space. The back of the throat is a common place for traffic jams, tension, because the back of the tongue drops down to the soft palate drops down to the back of the tongue, which is often retracted, and the jaw might be tense. So open up that back space. Picture it as big as possible. I feel great. So it's kind of similar to what you did here. And things tend to link together, operate together. So if you do the opposite, make those spaces smaller. I feel great. Which one makes you feel more engaged and strong and sounds better? So big, open, back of the throat. I get it. All right. And when we're big and open and expansive, we send messages to our brain that we are large and open and powerful and at ease. So, and the other passage for breath to flow through is the nose. And sometimes I have women who say, I want to sound less nasal or twangy. So nasal sounds are created when the soft palate drops so that the air has to flow through the nose, like And we need a degree of nasal resonance in order for our speech and voice to sound bright and balanced, or else we dead upside like we have a cold, hyponasal. But if you allow too much of the air to travel through the nose, you're going to get kind of a nasal sound. And I think it comes from just kind of relaxing, maybe being a little lazy and letting it drop. So same thing in a way. You're going to raise the soft palate, like when you make a pure vowel sound, so that all the air has to go through the mouth. My speech is open and clear, and I've dropped, and I don't sound like Marlon Brando from The Godfather. All right, so, and you can just play with it. And notice how it feels and sounds in what you're doing. You have control of this. You can shape and create any voice you want with this amazing instrument. And I just have I know it's pressed for time, but I just want to touch upon the larynx and larynx position because it's so important for the flexibility of your voice. And many women, they don't just want a strong voice, they want a flexible voice that expresses, their whole selves. Because you're multidimensional and your voice should reflect that. So first of all, a lot of tension is held in the larynx and we raise it. Think about it, your throat is where we express ourselves, a lot of tension, their tongue, jaw. So a lot of larynx is raised when they're tense, okay? So, but a high larynx, it isn't necessarily a bad thing. It might be a sound you're looking for. So just to demonstrate, like if you swallow, you feel a high larynx and then it drops. Hi, how are you? And then normal larynx Hi, how are you? And then a drop larynx. Hi, how are you? Ah, when you drop your larynx, it creates kind of a more authoritative sound. That depth is created. Different voices serve different purposes. If you're having a one-to-one conversation, you want kind of you don't need all that resonance. You want to sound like you're, coming from your heart. Um, but and to help you find these sounds with my clients, I often use characters or singing. So for a high larynx, you can think of a Disney character, like, I can show you the world. You can kind of find a sound. It's not always easy. How do I do that? Well, imitate someone, and you'll find it. Oh, I get it. A normal larynx, just normal everyday speaking, like a folk singer would sing, like, this land is your land. That's about like normal. And then a drop larynx, opera singer. Sorry, an opera singer would use. You drop the larynx, right? It creates a different shape. This is an amazing instrument that you can shape and create any sound you want, and are not limited by habit, which brings me to my next point. There are so many, and I'm going to close up now. There's so many vocal choices available to you, but so many of us get stuck in limiting ourselves to a certain way of speaking or sounding. So play with your voice. People are often so shocked when they discover the sounds they're capable of making. And the speech is very habit driven. And every once in a while, it's important to check in and evaluate. Does my voice reflect who I am now, or who I'm becoming, or I'm seeking to become? Does it suit the roles I play in my life now? Do I have any vocal habits that are detracting from my message and intent and overall image? Do I have a consistent habit of using glottal fry or upspeak or fading at the ends of lines? Vocal style can be somewhat like dress style. Every once in a while, you need to reassess it, just like your wardrobe and style, or else you'll end up dressing, sounding the same way you did 10 or 15 years ago. So when a woman is seeking greater confidence, self-awareness, and self-empowerment, I say, start with the voice. It will take care of everything else. Why? Because our voices, bodies, minds, and breath operate on a feedback loop. And when you're using proper voice technique, your voice does all the work for you. You're breathing deeply. You've learned how to open up the spaces within your body for sound to resonate. You've eliminated extraneous tension you weren't aware of for full vibration, engagement, and presence. And when you hear and feel yourself producing a strong, resonant voice, it makes you feel confident and comfortable. Your body doesn't lie. Your mind believes what your body and your voice is telling it. And people believe what your voice is telling it, oftentimes even more than your words, like we said. So that's why I truly believe that the fastest, most efficient approach to self-development is through the voice. It can teach us things about ourselves and the world like nothing else. And I also believe that a more fully explored and developed voice is directly related to a more fully lived and empowered voice. And I'll close on that.
Judith, thank you so much. You've given us so much to consider and to think about and to hold on to. I definitely am holding, I can feel it in my back body when I open up like that. And so just feeling a connection to the deeper parts of my body and the back of my body just really helps.
That's great. Yeah. There's more space in the back than there is in the front for breath, right? You know, that big open back. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's very, very captivating and fascinating and something to consider. And I wonder, as we go into, we'll move into breakouts, we'll stay in for I would say, let's say 12 minutes, Karen. So 12 minutes to go in, and that'll give each of us about 3 or 4 minutes to share. So just sharing a little bit of, if you don't know the people, your name, where you're coming from, and what touched you in this. What's one piece that you're going to carry from what Judith shared? And perhaps if you have a question for Judith, because we'll come back at the end of our session here and get to ask a few questions before we close. So 12 minutes. This is wonderful. I see a lot of comments in the chat, Judith, so I hope you take them in. And we will be back in just about 12 minutes at the 55 to start to close out. So sharing your name, what touched you, what questions you have, and we'll see you back in 12 minutes. Enjoy.